Okay, so welcome to everyone who is watching the first episode of the Black Gold Nation's newest podcast, How to Build a Black Nation with Power. I am the host, Brother Tumani Mwandani, out of Houston, Texas. As I like to say with all of my other media shows, I am the direct revolutionary product of one Cardinal Muthamaki out of the Shrines of the Black Madonna, and an indirect revolutionary product of one Albert B. Clegg, African title and name, Jeramogi Baby Ajiman. I am so excited about the starting of this podcast, as well as our guest, Cardinal Reverend Muthamaki Kimati, who has been connected with the Shrines of the Black Madonna 2 years after they started, which from 1954, the founder of the shrine left to St. Mark's Church, and 2 years later, this brother shows up, and he's been connected since then. So we're going to get into what led him to join the church, and when he joined, it was not the Shrines of the Black Madonna. They had another name at that time, and we want to get into all of that. So let me first give you guys an overview of what the podcast is about: how to build a Black nation with power. We understand the supporters, the members of this organization, the Black Gold Nation. Our contention is that we still are not free. We are still not empowered, but there are things that we can do to put ourselves in a position to be empowered, to be free. A blueprint has been laid, and there are puzzle pieces out here that if we can bring them together, we can have a complete puzzle by which we can deliver and present to Black people proven solutions, proven answers of things that work. And as I always say, I am a very proud former active member of the Shrines of the Black Madonna. That is the foundation that helped me to be who I am today, and that is the foundation of the Black Gold Nation movement. So Cardinal Muthamaki, you don't know a lot about me, so let me give you brief information about how I got here. I'm from South Carolina originally, graduated high school in 1988. I graduated in October, went to the military like 2 weeks later, did 4 years in the military, started to do a lot of reading, studying, changed my name while I was in the Army, got out, and I think I was home maybe 2 weeks before I drove to Texas, got to Houston on a Saturday, went to the shrine on Sunday. Cardinal Chewy was preaching. I had never heard a Black man say from the pulpit that Jesus was Black. No big deal, let's keep it moving. And I joined the first time I visited, and I was an active member for 20 plus years. Eventually, I got married to Cardinal Changa's daughter's daughter, Cardinal Changa's granddaughter.
Oni.
There you go, Oni. I'm gonna call her by her slave name. Yeah, so I got married to Oni. We had 3 kids, and kids are in their 20s now, so everybody is doing well. So I joined the shrine because it was not just, of course, Cardinal Chewy preaching, but everything just made sense. Of course, the sanctuary was quite Black. I had never been in a church that had so many Black things, on the walls and whatnot. So it was very moving experience for me, and again, everything that they were saying as far as nation building Black people, it all just made sense. So that is who I am. That's how I got here. But this show is about you and what led you to become a member of the Shrines of the Black Madonna, and what kept you there for so long. So we want to get into that. So first question, for those that don't know, who is Cardinal Muthamaki Kimati? Tell everybody who's watching now and those who watch the recording a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Muthamaki, Gary Bennet, born and raised in the city of Detroit. My mother is a deep South lady from a place called way across Georgia. And it's called that because it is way across Georgia.
Okay.
Down there by the Okefenokee Swamp in Jacksonville. Her people came out of South Carolina and Georgia, the Geechee Gullah folks, and my dad is a descendant of the Underground Railroad family, and he came from he came from Canada, and and they ran up there and in North Buxton, Amherstburg, Tillsbury, and so forth. And he was born on Walpole Island. Okay, I have got a bunch of sisters and brothers. Some of them are gone already, and we've all been in a spiritual, political kind of upbringing. In other words, we always attended church. We always believed in God, but at the same time, we always had a sense of what was going on politically for our people, for Black people. I remember when I was a kid and we moved. Oh, I'm also from a street in Detroit called Black Bottom or Hastings Street.
Okay.
And I was raised there, some of my happiest days, because we were an interdependent Black community. And with the problems that we had, we still loved one another, and nobody went hungry. No child went hungry anyway, out of the Brewster projects. Then I grew up on the West Side, and then, you were saying that, well, first of all, I went to, after I graduated, while I was at high school, and afterwards I wrote for a newspaper called the Pittsburgh Courier. It was just a little volunteer column that I had, and I would frequent the Central United Church of Christ, which is the former name for the Shrine of the Black Madonna. And there I would cover the social activities, because in Detroit at that time, I'm talking about during the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
From 56, I started covering some of the activities there at 56 all the way up to 61 when I went into the military. And I wrote our articles on some of the social activities, because the Shrine, or the Central United Church of Christ, was one of the only real facilities that was having social activities for the children. Well, I guess there were other churches that were doing that, but their church activity was very, very popular. Okay. And I would cover it for the Courier, whereas another young man would cover it for the Michigan Chronicle, which was another newspaper here in Detroit. Okay, so anyway, I would, when I got a little more serious, and when they started integrating the lunch counters in the 50s and so forth and so on, I got involved in that, and I got involved in that kind of protests in Detroit. And then I changed my column to be a little more serious. Mm-hmm. It coincided with where Jaramogi was going too, because he had always been serious and had always stood up with everything that was going on. But I started taking notice, and although I was at the Second Baptist Church, where I was a head of the young youth Sunday school as a teenager, I would sneak away to the shrine to see Jaramogi, and because he was preaching on something relevant, and that was the police brutality in the Black community. Okay. And he did a trilogy of sermons, and that really got my attention. Like I said before, I was going to the shrine, to the social activities, but then when he started preaching, and so forcefully, mm-hmm. and also he put God in it too. Okay. And I noticed that the other churches were not doing that, including the one that I came from.
They were not putting God into the conversation. They were not talking about social issues, or both.
Oh, they were talking about God.
Okay.
That's that was they kept us spiritual. Okay. Because that's Black folks' salvation, our spirituality. Sure. It's the direction that we take it is that's the importance. Yes, sir. And Jaramogi was talking about God, the spirituality, and then he was taking us somewhere. Okay. In terms of what we ought to be angry about, and we ought to do something about what's going on in a programmatic way. And the other churches were just talking about God. And we need to be continue to be nice and cool. Now this was so. Then I went into the military, like you did, sir. I went into the military and spent 3 years, and there I had a lot of experiences, including working in the concentration camp in Dachau, Germany. I spoke German,
Okay.
so it was very, very helpful. But I also
How did you come to speak German as a young Black man in coming out of Detroit?
uh, I went to, well, okay, let me say, before I went to the Army, I thought I was going to go into the medical field.
Okay.
I spoke Spanish before, because I took 4 years of Spanish in high school. And but I thought I was going to go in the medical field. So I started taking German. And I just happened to be helped by, I went to the Detroit Institute of Technology.
Okay.
And I happened to be helped on the first day of school, the first day of our German class. We're sitting there waiting for the instructor to come in. And this tall, blonde, blue-eyed guy in a leather coat with a leather briefcase came marching into the classroom. And he went to the desk and slammed his leather briefcase on the desk. And he said, "My name is Herr Wolfgang Fabel. I was in the Second World War and I was a Nazi SS lieutenant. The World War II is over. I am here to teach you German. You will learn German." And we did learn German.
Okay.
And fortunately, the German he spoke was the German that I had to speak when I went into Germany. So when I went into Germany, they sent me to Dachau, the concentration camp, and I worked out of there.
So did you go in as a linguist, or what was your job when you went in?
I went in there as a psychiatric social worker technician, otherwise known by the other soldiers as a head shrinker.
Right. Was it called MOS back then?
Yeah, it was 916, psychiatric social worker technician.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And you were there for 3 years, in the military for 3 years?
I was in 3 years in the military, but I was there for about a year and a half because I spent some time in the South. And, they moved me out of the South so I wouldn't get hung. I'll tell you about that another time.
Amen. Good move. So what exactly were you doing in Germany?
That's what I did. Well, besides my social life, do you want to know about that, or?
Well, no. I mean, as far as your job in the military, like they sent you to Germany to a concentration camp. What were you doing?
Okay, my job was to help soldiers to adjust to the Army.
Okay.
Not only help soldiers, but help their families adjust to the Army. And in the military, if you have an occupation and you have the kind of officers over you who understand you, you do more than what you would do in civilian life.
Yes, sir.
Because they know that you're able to do it. So I worked with families, Army dependents.
Okay.
And the Army guys who were in the stockade, they would be in the stockade. In fact, that's what Dachau turned out to be by the time I got there, because World War II had been over by, let's see, I guess that would have been 15 years.
Okay.
You know. Okay, so it was a stockade, meaning the soldiers who ran away, what they call absent without leave.
That's right.
Soldiers who did other things in fact, I'll tell you a little quick story. I was in the stockade waiting. I used a cell as my office, and I was reading a book called "From the Death Camp to Existentialism" by Viktor Frankl. I suggest everybody read that. But anyway, I was informed that the crematorium where they burned the people was right outside my window, and that really ran a chill through me.
Wow.
But the other thing is that one of the guys who was incarcerated, a brother, he was incarcerated, he was shaving me because he would give free haircuts and stuff, and he was shaving me. And I said, hey, we didn't call each other brother at that time. He said, "Hey, what you in here for?" And he pressed the razor up against my throat. He said, "Murder." You know.
Okay.
And we both cracked up. It was such a classical moment, you know. You know, and we became kind of tight to the point that I was in my cell waiting for the next prisoner to come down so I could interview him. And these officers came to the door. He said, "You the head drinker?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "You got to come and get this guy. He's gone crazy. He's gone crazy." So I went down there, down these narrow hallway where the European cells were, and looked in there, and it was my brother. It was him.
Okay.
And he was a big brother, and he had his back to me, to the cells. These cells are made of wood, and they had these little porthole doors you can look through.
Okay.
And I saw who it was, and I said, "Let me in this blank, this blank, let me in this place." So they let me in, and he turned around like he's going to jump on me, and he saw who it was, and he just burst out crying.
Wow.
Burst out crying. But the end of it is that we heard noise and turned around, and they had those guns sticking through the door. They were going to shoot both of us. You know, so
wow.
I read too much for them anyway. You know.
Okay, and you were in for 3 years.
I was in for 3 years.
Okay, and when you got out, how long were you out before you found your way back to the church?
Okay, quick story. I stayed in New York. Well, when I was in the Army, I was I befriended a couple of people from New York. One is his name is Robin Kenyatta. He cut an album called Gypsy Man. He played saxophone, and so when I came out of the Army, I went to live with him and his family for about 8 months, and he was very black oriented.
Okay.
You know? In fact, he's the one that got me wearing a fro and everything, and I was supposed to go to Malcolm X's. Malcolm X was at the Audubon Ballroom there in New York, and I was going to go see Malcolm X, but some people who I was in the Army with, who lived in Philly, convinced me to go to Philly that weekend, because I told them, "No, I'm going to see Malcolm X." They said, "You can see Malcolm anytime." And because I went there to Philly, I missed being a part of that, and I'm glad the Lord blessed me that way. But anyway, I stayed in New York for a while, and I became much more conscious of my blackness, you know. And then when I came back to Detroit, I messed around working in the factory. Then I got hired by the city, and then I was made a assistant director and assistant director of a black, I can say black because all the people were black, program. All these things, I'm telling you that God had put me on a path.
Sure. You know, no doubt.
Finding myself, finding my worth, and doing something for my people. And I wasn't, really that super into the consciousness of it, but I started evolving, and I noticed.
About how old were you at that time, Cardinal?
26 years old.
26. Okay.
Yeah. See, all these things I got in there by kind of default. The Lord just, because there was a program. I was, first of all, I was working in the factory. Then I found out that I could get a job with the city with my experience in the military. So I got a job doing both until I stopped the factory. And then they put me in charge of this cultural arts program because they didn't want to put, and this is racist too, they didn't want to put the old head guy who was in charge of actually working with all these musicians, 500 musicians and comedians, and some of these people moved on to Motown and did big things, all of this. But they asked me would I take over, because the white guy who was in charge of it, he couldn't get along with all these black folks, and the brother who had been there 25 years, he was 40 years old. So they asked me would I, make it run the program, and I said, yeah, of course. I'm young. I don't know.
Sure, why not?
So anyway, and they told me, and I'll tell you what got me, what it made me realize was happening. He said, don't let blank make a blank decision. You make all the decisions, because they were going to try to run the program through me.
Gotcha.
Well, as it turned out, one of the brothers who was up in office, he became a deputy mayor under the mayor that was there.
Okay.
And he came to me and he told me, he said, Bennett, I'm going to have to put this other guy, the brother in charge, older brother in charge, and make you the assistant director. I said, well, as long as you don't touch my money. You know.
Okay.
It worked out well for 2 years. But anyway, I started noticing my blackness, my evolving and so forth. And then people were becoming much more black. 1967, I just happened to be out there, by the way, when the rebellion started in 67.
Right.
And I saw it when it first started, you know, and I'll go into that another time. But anyway, after that rebellion, then all these penny capsules were out there on the street, little pink capsules. And in those capsules was heroin.
Okay. Okay.
They flooded, just like the Boxer Rebellion, just like in China. They flooded China with that when people rebelled against the British.
Okay.
They did the same thing to Detroit.
Wow. Really? Okay.
You get those little it wasn't 2 cent capsules, they cost about a couple of dollars, you know, but there's little capsules with the heroin in them. And it became a cultural thing to see brothers standing in the corner and just
nodding.
Nodding. Yeah.
So let me get this right, Cardinal. After the rebellion in Detroit, to I guess to calm people down, it had to be the government. They flood the community with heroin capsules. Is that what you're telling me?
I've only changed one word to put people out. I won't say calm people out because it killed people.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. Wow. Okay. All right.
Killed people. Some of the leaders in the struggle.
Yeah.
You know, they OD'd.
Yes, sir.
They OD'd. So many. I mean, I remember brothers engineers we used to run with, and we had all kinds of conscious things going on, and we'd be rapping and so forth. So now we were using weed. There was weed up before I joined the church.
Okay.
Before I joined the church.
Yeah.
You know, and all that, but we, you know, but this is so it killed us out. So I knew that, and we all knew some of us knew what happened, and the consciousness. There were groups all over the place trying to talk about doing things and so forth and so on.
You mean all over Detroit or all over the nation?
Detroit.
All over Detroit. Okay. You remember what some of those groups were by any chance?
The Black Conscious Library.
Okay.
Of course, the Black Panthers. The Muslims. Islam. There was oh man, I'm blocking. I can see people, but I can't see the names.
Okay.
Racial Congress, CORE.
That was Snick's group, and that was Stokely Carmichael's group, right?
Was
he still with Snick at that time? Okay.
Snick.
Okay.
Yeah, Dorothy Dewberry, and that was Snick.
Okay.
And then there was more radical groups out there. In fact, I would go to the shrine, especially after the rebellion in 1967, or right after it was 1967. They had a killing at a motel over on Woodward called Algiers Motel.
Okay.
And these brothers were killed. And so they had a tribunal, and because they weren't getting any in the justice system, there was no justice there. So Jaramogi and some of the others who were part of the church, they had a tribunal where they tried these police and in absentia. They tried the police and they found them guilty and so forth and so on. And I was there for that. I didn't know it was that historical, but as it turned out later, other folks had told me, you know, and of course we didn't have cameras or like that, you know,
sure.
But I attended that, and I attended some other things, and I say that too because at that time, going to the shrine, when you went there, and let me just say this. I said that I would never, after I came out of the military, I said I would never go back to another church.
Right.
Because they weren't talking about what I thought was necessary to talk about in terms to inform the people how God works to liberate us, to free us, to give us what
and you got out. And what year did you get out?
I got out of the military in '64.
64.
Returned to And they returned to Detroit in 65.
Okay, so you got out in 64, went back to Detroit in 65, and you said once you got out, I'm never going to join another church because all they're doing is talking.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
All right, I'm with you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the church. I didn't disrespect, and I knew and never left God.
Yeah.
You know, I was still spiritual, but I knew there was something that we should be knowing and doing.
Yes, sir.
To make life work for us, you know, and the church wasn't saying at all, you
That's
know,
right.
and you know, I wasn't putting the church down, but anyway, the shrine did have a lot of what I wanted to hear, and I messed around out there. So then the drug with the heroin kind of went down a little bit. Well, let me see. No, I think that was later. And people were seemed to be getting themselves kind of together, and then they came out with this crack. But I think crack came later.
Yeah, crack came later.
Crack came later. But anyway, I with so many different people who were revolutionary and wanted to change things in the shrine. When I would go there, you'd have about 20 different groups there with different uniforms.
Okay.
Some had blue jean outfits, some had some of them had dashikis, some had, and so forth and so on. And all of them were considered themselves revolutionary, and they were, you know, and they were in their own way.
Yeah.
But I think, and that had probably, and I learned this later, a lot to do with Jaramogi knowing that you have to pull people together under a specific banner. Right. In order to make sense, because everybody had their own leadership and going different ways, and most of them were willing to strike out in blind rage.
Right.
And that wasn't that as it shown in other situations, that doesn't work. Not when it's blind rage and not strategic.
So let me ask you quickly, Cardinal. What do you think it was about Jaramogi? And I'm assuming he was not Jaramogi at the time, right? He had to be Reverend Clegg at the time.
He was Jaramogi in 67. Okay,
so he was already Jaramogi.
He became Jaramogi a little after 67, because I remember when we were named. I was named around the same time.
Okay.
And he became Jaramogi.
Okay.
No, after 67. I said 67. No, it was well after 67. He became Jaramogi because I had joined the church. I'm taking a long road around, but I joined the church and I went to the church. I met my wife, Yele, and she was a member of the shrine. And she told me about the shrine. I said, well, I already knew about it. She said, well, you ought to come on down. And I said, well, okay. You know, I call myself doing her a favor, coming on down. You know. Yeah. So anyway, well, if I wanted to see her, I had to.
Yeah, I'm saying, a good woman will have you doing things you didn't plan on doing.
Yeah, that's right. Sure. So he's going. We're going to join another church. But I've been hearing about it, and I had been going there from time to time, you know. And I said, okay, let me give him a play, you know.
Okay.
And
so I want to ask you really quickly, what was it about Jaramogi that he was able to get other people from other groups to come into a church and listen to what he was saying? What do you think made him? Why would people show up when he invited them to be a part?
Because he covered it all.
Okay.
He covered it all: the spiritual, the mental, and what we need to be doing physically to make things work. Okay. He covered it all. He didn't leave anything out, and he was very authoritative with it. And it wasn't a situation where you got to come now and die. Okay. It was a situation where you had to come now and grow. Okay. And we knew not only that, what was wrong with the Black community, you know, out of love, he spoke about that. Okay. You know, why the slave culture churches, you know, why were they wrong? We knew that was something wrong. And so that's why, you know, we didn't go, you know. Okay. So he spoke about that and gave us philosophy, language, to describe it and understanding to ourselves, you know.
Okay.
And we discussed it. And he was very fiery at a church service. And then if you join, or if you're around, and I have to say it like this because I went around to the shrine in 1970, 69 and 70, did every single thing that every member did, including I was working for the shrine, taking money at the door for different events and so forth and so on under Cardinal Nandi. And because she knew what she was doing. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So I for the whole year of 70, went to New York with them to a convention. But after I got back from New York, I couldn't take it any longer. There was a brother, and I hope people don't mind me saying that. There was a brother, there was a choir was singing that Sunday, right after we got back from New York. And it was a brother, and they were singing, why don't you surrender? Why don't you surrender? And this brother looking straight at me.
Okay.
I ran down the aisle, but I didn't know that brother was cross-eyed. He was looking at me.
I was about to say, was he looking at you? Maybe you felt guilty for not doing what you should have been doing.
Yeah. But Jeramogi, everybody looking at me like, well, why are you going now? You already a member. They thought I was a member because I was doing everything.
Because you've been around doing everything, right?
Yeah, Jeramogi came and hugged me, and he just said, okay, all right, okay. But
so Jeramogi at that time had to be, what, in his early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, right around that time?
Yeah, you have to see, I was 20, what? I came back in 65 and joined in 71. So I was what, 30? 30. So he must have been, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before you went into the military, you said you would frequent the shrine every now and then. You talked about how Jeramogi talked about God and spirituality and how we should be doing something in a programmatic way. You talked about Jeramogi inviting other groups to the church. Him again continue to talk about God, spirituality, the church being more active. And you also talked about earlier your upbringing being spiritual and political. So it seems like both your upbringing and Jeramogi's preaching, teaching put a lot of emphasis on the spirituality part. And oftentimes our people, because of religion, we kind of get caught into doing things that we've been raised to do, but it's not a programmatic response to anything. It's kind of like, just wait and die, go to heaven. But Jeramogi comes in with the spirituality. So can you talk a little bit about how important the understanding of spirituality was as it relates to trying to do something to move Black people forward?
Yeah, it's we're all on a journey.
Yes, sir.
We're all on a journey, and we've been commissioned by God to be on that journey. And one of the things that Jeramogi used to say when we put together the KUA program is the KUA is to help us find who we really are. Okay. Find who we really are as an African people, but even more than that, the spiritual person that we are inside of us, that spiritual person that God works through, and it is the one and the same as far as where the Spirit is directing us in terms of us in our liberation struggle, in our being right with God, and our being right with people. I mean, even white folks have a spiritual battle that they have to, if they choose to, as Jeramogi would say, if they have a mind to, find that goodness and that God in them that bequeath a certain type of behavior that got to come together with for all people.
Okay.
Well, we were doing that for our people.
That's right.
Because we can't change anybody else.
That's right.
But we can change ourselves. And that's what Jeramogi was trying to get us to unstrip the onion to help us find our real self. And with that power coming from knowledge, with that power coming from the energy, we are able to bring it forth to help in a programmatic way, our liberation struggle.
Right.
There are things that we have inside of us in terms of tools and talents,
yes, sir,
and spirit that we have yet to realize, but it bubbles up every once in a while. And Jaramogi was trying to get us to find that special something inside so strong.
That's right. That's right.
And that same spirit that individually, if you're going to use the word individually, we all have something special. And we can make that work as a collective and as a group to fit into that plan that God has for us to make life work for us and for the world.
Okay, all right. Okay, so you have said a lot, Cardinal Muthamaki, and it's awesome. So in 2021, the Black church, if the Black church is talking about that, I don't see how they're talking about that in the way of a programmatic response to oppression for Black people. If they're talking about that, and Jaramogi was talking about that in the late 60s, early 70s. So, you know, my questions about Jaramogi come later, but I just want you to briefly speak to how
Hold it. I've got to plug my means of communication in.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. I thought I didn't. Well, come on, where are we at here? Okay. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay, now where's your other end here? Come on. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Ready?
I'm back.
Okay, cool. So talk about briefly how profoundly phenomenal that kind of talk had to be in the late 60s, early 70s, back then, where now that kind of conversation is revolutionary now in 2021. So how awesome was it, you know, to be in the sanctuary, in the church, to hear a Black man talking like that, which had to be light years away from what everybody else is talking about as it relates to sermons in the Black church.
Okay, you know, you witnessed, you know, let me say the churches, we're coming from, I'll tell you this, although the churches kept us in slave culture, they maintained and nurtured a spirit.
Yes, sir.
That we are.
Yes, sir.
The transformation from being spiritual enough to stay in the slave culture to spiritual enough to become revolutionary is still in process.
Okay.
Jaramogi was out there so far ahead of his time. In doing this on so many bases.
Yeah.
Mental, physical, and spiritual. What he did with us over the last 68 years was noticeable. We became leadership.
Yes, sir.
People noticed this.
Yep.
Not only are they noticing that, but they're noticing the enemy system and comparing it to the need for change or the need to stay in the slave culture. Which one works? That fear about change in the enemy system is still prevalent.
Yes, sir.
That's why we're still not voting the way that we were supposed to. But he was a hero. Jaramogi was a hero. They fought him. And they're still fighting him. We still have that same mentality. They're still fighting him, but they know the difference.
When you say they fought him, who are you referring to?
Some of our people.
Black people.
White folks, yeah, of course, white folks fought because those who did not want change and still don't want change are going to find ways of changing. Maintaining the status quo.
Yep.
Even if sometimes there's skinning and grinning.
Yeah.
So, and then we fought it because we were afraid to change.
Right.
And now it's getting so to the point that even when Jaramogi preached it, he says, no, we're not going back to the cotton fields.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need us in the cotton fields. Where do they need us? Not in the cotton fields, but I worked at Dachau.
Mm-hmm.
And at Dachau, the Germans had a final solution.
That's right.
And don't think that through ways that we know not of, or ways that we don't want to think about, I guess that's more like it.
Yeah.
That same thing can't happen.
Yes, sir.
If they don't need us, or if we're in the way, but that doesn't mean that we punk out.
That's right.
That means that we build the institutions that we need to keep us here for the time that we have to do it. And that's what Jaramogi was talking about. We change and stand up for ourselves, but we do something with that and build the institutions that we need to live, to feed ourselves, to interact with each other. Just like what's happening with Africa now.
Yeah.
Africa is going through the same process that we're going through with the whole colonialist thing. And there's a brother by the name of Lumumba on if you can look at him on the YouTube.
Yes.
And some
I know he is. Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah.
And then there's a sister too, and it's on there. So they're changing. We're going through a process, and God is taking us through that process. Mm-hmm. It's just that the more and more of us need to pay attention to it, so that it's not just words and them people over there, but us.
Right. Right. So one of my questions was, and you kind of already answered that. I just want to make sure that I got the answer right. One of my questions was, given all of the different Black groups at that time that were vying for the attention, time, and energy of Black people, from Martin Luther King to Malcolm X, SNCC, all those other groups that you talked about, my question was going to be, what led you to become a part of the Shrine, to give your attention, time, and energy? So I'm assuming it was that kind of preaching from Jaramogi. That kind of preaching is what led you there, as opposed to some of the other Black groups that were around at that time. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I'm an intelligent man, not the most intelligent, not even halfway, but I'm an intelligent man. And Jaramogi was speaking to all the issues that I had questioned about.
Okay.
And not only did he answer questions, but he presented a way of life that I could follow to grow myself, and to grow my people. I was a community organizer already. I was doing gang work and other stuff on the East Side. And so it was in sync with where I was, because I didn't know enough to do what I was doing. I don't care how many degrees you got, if you're not committed to something that takes these kids and their parents into a realm where they feel empowered, and you got them in some kind of programmatic activity, and not striking out in blind rage individually or as a group. You got something going, and Jaramogi presented that, and I appreciated that, and I followed.
Okay. So Jaramogi and some of the other members left St. Mark's in 1954. So I'm going to assume that in 1971, we were still only in Detroit, right? We only had that one location in Detroit in 71, correct?
Well, we had I don't know if it was 71 or 72 or 73. We had cadres.
Okay.
We had college. Many of us were going to college.
Right.
I stayed here in Detroit. You had college cadres, and Kalamazoo, there was a college cadre there. You had college cadre in New York. You had a college cadre in Chicago. And they formed a basis of the foundation. They found the places that we eventually evolved into. But they brought people out of New York, out of Chicago, out of Kalamazoo, to be a part of the church, and certainly we took it right back out there and established institutions in those cities, and Flint too. Yeah, that was before Atlanta and Houston.
So Jaramogi had college cadres around the country in major cities, I'm assuming, and those cadres came back to Detroit for training, or did they move back to Detroit, or did they move to Detroit?
No, some of them came back for training. Not everybody in those cadres, but there were people in those cadres, key people in those cadres who came back for training, because we definitely, and that's another, we definitely had a training program for all levels of people who were ready to give themselves wholeheartedly, and those who are thinking about it, or whatever the case is. So we had quite a full training program. That BCN is the answer. Yeah.
So it was always either Jaramogi's vision or the vision of leadership to expand beyond Detroit. That was always a part of the plan.
Yeah. Okay. It was logical.
Okay. All right. So at the height of the church's locations, different locations around the country, how many did we have at the height of our locations around the country?
Well, at the height, I guess we're talking about Atlanta, Houston. Well, okay. Let me put it this way. At one time, we had a church in Flint. We had a church in Kalamazoo. Then we had 4 churches here in Detroit.
Okay.
Then we had a church in Atlanta. Then we had a church in Houston. And we evolved to Beulah. Right. Now, then we had the cadres that were sometimes still operating at the colleges, even at that time. And then now we have the churches in Africa. Okay.
So from the one location in Detroit to the different locations around Michigan and in the other states, what do you think the appeal was for people to not only become a part of the college cadre, but to come back to Detroit, or to come to Detroit, get training, and then take that training to other locations? What do you think the appeal was for those persons who eventually became, a part of the church?
We have a cadre that we were just talking about at our prayer meeting yesterday, Philadelphia cadre. They were very, very, very instrumental in moving us forward. These are a group of people who heard about Jaramogi, paid a visit, read the book Black Messiah, Black Christian Nationalism, and they decided to come in and observe. And they heard what they wanted to hear, because they knew what was wrong in Philadelphia, and they knew what was happening with Black folks. So they decided to come, and then when they came, they met us, we met them, and then they joined. Not all at one time, but they joined. Right. So it was the appeal. It was appeal that it was an answer. BCN is the answer. We don't just take emotional folks. We do take, there's nothing wrong with emotion, but we take intelligent people who want to do something that is really going to work. That's why we're not the kind of group that strikes out blind rage. Or that's why we're not the group that just tries to make money to pay the minister and all that kind of stuff. Right. We know that we have a problem. We've analyzed the problem. We're always analyzing the problem, and we're making with that analysis strategies to deal with that problem. And part of that strategy is to build institutions, institutional power, and change ourselves from within, so that we can be able to help others find that path and build God's kingdom here on earth.
Okay, that answer, like an answer you gave before I asked the question, is another perfect segue. So the next question is you've mentioned BCN. Of course, I know what it is. You know what it is, but other people may not. So tell us, what is BCN, and why was it then and even now so unique as it relates to the Black church? What is BCN, and why was it then and even now so unique as it relates to the Black church?
Okay. BCN is Black Christian Nationalism. We're Black, right?
Yes, sir.
And we're Christians. We do believe in the struggle of the Black Messiah. Now, Jesus was Black. Black Messiah, Jesus, you see. We learned, most of us have learned about Jesus, but we realized that Jesus was a Black man who was struggling for the liberation of his people, as well as struggling to liberate his people by bringing his people back to God. Throughout the whole Old Testament, you've had a prophet and a judge who was trying to keep the people in contact and in working relationship with God, who has always brought them through. Jesus was trying to do the same thing.
Okay.
And the principles that he put out there were the same principles that we need as a people to find our liberation, find our liberation. He had a communal group of people who he grew, you know, where they had to find themselves, testify, confess, and build a communal society. And that's what they were trying to do, with God being the head of that society. So we're doing the same thing, and we have no problem saying that Jesus was Black, and that's a traditional African way. And so we follow Jesus. We're Christians. We're Black Christians, and we're nationalists because we're trying to build power for our people. And we say that unashamedly. Every people has their own institutions and power except us.
Right.
And so we need it. So we can't fail ourselves, nor can we fail the rest of humanity by not upholding and having power for ourselves. And that way we can equally trade off with everybody else, you know, in terms of making everything work.
Okay, so how do you define that power? What does, if a person were to ask you, okay, you're talking about the Black church, Black people, Black Jesus, and power, what do you mean by power?
The ability to own whatever we need. Okay. In order to exist as a people. The ability to trade off with everybody else, or in business and even warfare, or whatever we have to do.
That's right.
With the ability to do it and maintain it. To protect ourselves, to love ourselves, to protect our children, and even our history, you know. And I say all those things, it's not abstract. Our history has not been protected. Right. That's why we don't know who we are.
Yes, sir. So
we have to have the whatever we need in terms of our own education programs to protect what it is we need to learn, about our past, our present, and our future. That's power, to be able to teach our young people. At this point, teach ourselves.
Yes, sir.
And our young people. And then power is also our economics. I grew up in the Brewster Projects on Hastings Street, but to some extent, you had Black businesses supporting Black businesses. You had Black people buying from Black people. When they ran the I-75 freeway through there, that blew that. That blew that. Integration was not necessarily our best friend.
That's right. That's right.
It tore us away from each other. So your economics, our religion, our sense of who we are theologically, governs our whether or not we know where we're going and what we're going to be here existentially. Our education, our whole social selves, and our health. The United Church of Christ has just passed a resolution saying that racism is a mental health problem. Okay. Well, we can attest to that. No doubt. We can attest to that. And white folks should be able to attest to it, because it is for them to grievously so, even more so, because they're the perpetuators of it. But we perpetuate it on ourselves based on our slave culture acceptance. And not doing what so we have to control all the input and all the output as it relates to a group of people. Okay, so for our people
who do accept the fact that they are Black. A lot of our people, if not the majority of our people, are Christian, are connected to, or were raised in a Christian household. The whole nationalist thing just is logical. It makes all the sense in the world to me. So why do you think, Cardinal, more of our people are not, if not as a follower of Jaramogi or the Shrine, just definitively speaking, why do you think most of our people are not Black Christian nationalists? Why do you think we are not that way? Why do you think we don't follow a Black Jesus? Why do you think we're not trying to have power? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think we are, but I think we're trying to go out in so many different ways.
Okay.
That we're petering everything out, you know, and I think that we don't conceptualize our need for Black Christian nationalism, and that has to get out there. We're dealing with a whole system that we have to take responsibility for, and that has been perpetuated against us to talk otherwise. You know, we don't have the institutions that are already set up to prove what we are saying is true. Right. If we get power, we could do this, we could do that. So people choose what's convenient and what they see in their face, you know, a God that they can see, you know. Right. So we just have to keep spreading the word, keep working at it. Some people say, well, it looks like we're going back to where we were. No, we're not. We're evolving still ahead. God is still in charge. We're still the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church and everything are still moving that way. It's just that we're at this point in our journey where what the struggle looks like, and we need to keep analysis going to see what we need to continue to do and not do over here. But it's going on anyway. More people know about where we're coming from than they did before. And I'm not saying us, I'm saying know about where we're coming from and where we need to go. And more people are applying some of the things that we're talking about. Let's take for an example, Kua or healing, body, mind, and spirit.
Yep.
There are more Black groups out there dealing with that now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There are more Black groups out there dealing with the politics and everything. It's just we haven't just put it together and say, this is it, all y'all. And BCN is not trying to run at all.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
We're just trying to get people to do it.
Yeah, amen. And that's one of the reasons I started the Black Gold Nation, because I understand that the Shrine's foundation, as strong as it is, like you just said, Cardinal, is going to take other pieces of the puzzle from other people in order to make it a holistic and a whole puzzle, so we can then give it to Black people. So I agree 100%. So
a whole pie. I wouldn't call it a puzzle.
A whole pie. Amen. Yes, sir. Because you know we Black, we like to eat. All right. So I don't know of any church that had a program like the Shrine with multiple locations around the country, and a concrete plan to change both the psychology, the mentality, the physical life of Black people with institutional power and everything that we were trying to do. Nation build, literally nation build. So we already talked about the unique thinking of Jaramogi at that time, from the before the late 50s, you know, moving forward. The leadership that helped Jaramogi initially, were they also on the same level as he with his thinking, or did he help them to come around to that way of thinking? So was it all Jaramogi, or was it Jaramogi and the leadership, or was it a little bit of both?
Can I step away for a second?
Yes, by all means.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I had to pause the recording for a second. All right, you back? You ready to roll?
Yeah. I can give you a litany of excuses, but I won't even try.
I'll use my imagination. Keep it going. Okay. So do you remember the question? Or do you need me to re-ask it?
Would you please?
We've already discussed the unique thinking of Jaramogi at that time, from first time you were introduced, moving forward 50s, 60s, 70s. And my question was the leadership at that time that was helping Jaramogi build the shrine, was their thinking like his, or did he help them to come into that way of thinking? Was it just him who thought the way that he did as relates to core spirituality, God, the struggle, or was other people on the same level as he was?
Well, I don't think anybody was really on the same level as he was. That's why we call him the master teacher.
Yes, sir.
We used to meet so many times a week in his apartment, and I guess in other regions, the other leaders would meet with him, and he'd discuss stuff. He'd criticize stuff. We would criticize. He would criticize, and we would tear up stuff in terms of what it was, what we did, how did it come out, and why didn't we do this? Why did we do that? What about this? And he'd be open for what we were saying.
Yeah.
He would lead the discussion all the time. And then where it looked like it needed some gaps to be filled in terms of direction, he was there. He would just stomp down, lead the discussion, and he listened to what we had to say. And the level of the discussion brought the best out of us.
Okay.
Which is what he was trying to do, and not trying to do. I'm sorry, which is what he did.
Yes, sir.
He brought the best out of us, and we learned. He challenged us if we were right or wrong. And to see exactly what do we mean. What not only was he trying to get information, he was trying to give us information, and he was trying to make sure that we understood. And I think he was trying to learn from us. He was just such a master teacher in so many different ways. So we contributed. He led the discussion in all cases, but we all contributed because it was always a beautiful, strong, powerful learning process. All of it.
Okay. So you've been,
and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
Well, yeah. I'm sure it wasn't. I've heard about some of the conversations in the meetings. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you've been with or around Jaramogi and the church's leadership for 50 plus years. Tell me about Jaramogi's group, those he depended on for guidance and direction. How important were they to helping Jaramogi become Jaramogi?
Well, I don't know. Now there was a lot of people before me, who he listened to and worked with, and that were there during the 60s, during the 50s and the 60s. People I don't know, people I do know who ran some of the institutions that the church was helping to sponsor. As I said before, Jaramogi had his own mind, but he did listen to everybody, and even if he didn't agree with you at a given time, if it looked like what you said made sense, he'd come back. He wouldn't tell you I was wrong. He wouldn't say not wrong, but I should have followed you up on that. He didn't do that. He just went on with the program and made sure. And if you were the right kind of person, you just went in and sync with it and helped out as best you knew how to do. And you learned from that, because he was still ahead of you on it, because he knew exactly how to do that. But those who shaped him, I don't know if we could say that. I'm sure they did, in the way that he would allow them to shape them. Cardinal Nandi, his sister, of course, and Gladys, his sister, and other people in the church. I'm saying that he had respect for everybody, and he took in the information that they had to say, and he used it to grow himself and grow the church. It wasn't a matter of growing Jaramogi. I'm speaking here now, and I see that. It wasn't a matter of growing Jaramogi. It was a matter of growing the church, and him growing to be able to do that through everybody and everything he touched.
Okay. Okay. All right. So speaking of the group, and let's talk about the church's program that helped to develop, that helped Jomo to develop that group and the program. So from action groups to the group process to MR to devotionals, how was the church able to come up with so many different life-changing tenets, practices, and programs, and have Black people actually do them? How was that possible, that the church had so many revolutionary ideas that Black people still need today, and Black people actually did that stuff? How was that? How did that come to be? How was that possible?
We were open for revelation.
Okay.
As determined by the struggle. As determined by the struggle and our experiences.
Okay.
God gave us revelation. God gave Jeremiah revelation, and he worked it out with whoever he needed to work it out with. He worked it out with us.
Can you give me an example of that revelation? Can you give me an example of one of those revelations?
Cool.
Okay.
The group process.
Okay.
MOR. COR.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, you laugh, but I'm telling you.
I'm laughing because those things are life changing.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because they're powerful, life changing.
All of that. They might. Cool kind of came through Cardinal 90, but we had earlier discussions about stuff like that, because I remember when I was doing youth work, I heard about this group in California that was raising money that way, and I probably talked about it, but it came from the seriousness and the intention came from Cardinal 90, and it's almost like Jeremiah may have thought about it and talked with Cardinal 90. Cardinal 90 sent who was that? Oba Diallo, and I forgot who else it was.
You're talking about MOR, right?
MOR.
Okay.
Those chicken buckets out there up and down Livernois, and they came back with money. Okay, there it is. So the revelation kept coming, because if you open yourself to God's will and open sincerely, especially in the direction that God is trying to take us, revelation is going to come. The question is, do you have the whatever to follow through with it and work with it? Jeremiah had to follow through. They had whatever he needed to follow through with it and work with it and try it out to see where you only seen the things that work. He probably tried.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you this. Do you know that Jeremiah just sent me to hypnosis school?
No, sir, I did not.
He did. Well, it didn't work.
Yeah, obviously. So Cardinal, you've mentioned the term Kua several times, and for people who don't have a clue as to what Kua is, can you give us a brief, high-level understanding of what Kua is?
I'm gonna read something right quick.
Okay.
The Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church prepares sincere seekers. You have to be a seeker in the shrine. You got to be a seeker.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're just there. Seekers for the experience of God by enabling them to achieve self-realization through the integration of spirit, mind, and body, the opening of self to positive group interaction through encounters, confession, penance, the group process, and the participation of the 11 holy sacraments, the process through which make up the ancient African science of Kua, help the individual realize the will of God in his daily life through total submission, and by actually casting off the protective and destroying the behavior patterns that conceal his inner divinity, thus enabling him to enter fully into the communal life of a transforming religious community. We have been taught to be individualistic,
right,
in this society.
Yes, sir.
Individualism is satanic.
Yes, right.
Because it keeps people apart. It makes people feel they're better than others or lower than others or whatever the case is. So we have to do something about that, in terms of our basic nature is communal.
Right.
African people, our basic nature is communal. And so we've got to strip the onion, get all that stuff off of us and find that real self that God put here on earth with other people to make God's plan manifest here on earth, where you have love and community among our people and among all people of the world. So Kua is ancient science that helps to put that together. Jaramogi researched it and came up with it, and we learned it. And I remember when we were evolving it, you know, we started with the children.
Yeah.
And we grew it, and it took years to grow it, and we grew it, and it really helped me, you know, and it helped a whole lot of us.
Yes, sir.
Some of us who came, had we not come into the church, we would have been dead, you know, or whatever. And we're still finding God. I'm still finding God. More and more and more, you know.
So I'm gonna say really quickly. I don't know how quickly you can answer this, but really quickly, you know, having been an active member of the church for a lot of years, being involved with Kua devotions group process, you know, I get it. I've been involved in it. Everything you just said and everything you read makes all the sense in the world. Why do you think more Black churches aren't doing a Kua kind of program to not only break down the walls of individualism to get to the real self, but so that we can come together as a people? Why do you think that is?
Well, you experienced it, and I experienced it.
Yes, sir.
But they haven't.
Right.
And they haven't because what does this sentence, this whole paragraph start off saying? You have to be a seeker.
A seeker, yeah.
A seeker after what? More money? Huh?
No.
More individualism? Huh?
Right. I got you.
No. How do you change yourself so that you can work with and become a brother or a sister to everybody?
Right.
You know, so that you can come together and put our goal as more important than our individualism.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a profoundly simplistic answer. and I get it. Okay, all right, amen. All right, next question. So from the BCN creed to the covenant to the program to BCN teachers to the triangles to the Black church as a change agent, Lord have mercy, to the BCN lifestyle, I could go on and on. I believe that the leadership we had to develop those kinds of things was absolutely awe-inspiring and absolutely amazing. So what do you think, Cardinal, allowed us to create, or I guess the answer might be just what you just said, but the question is, what do you think allowed us to create such revolutionary documents and programs, create a culture by which we were actually living by those words and trying to build a nation within a nation? So I'm going to assume that your answer would be, we were seeking. Is that what allowed us to create so many different programs, revolutionary programs that put the shrine so far ahead of other people?
We were seekers, we are.
Yes, sir.
We are seekers, but we are also receptors. We accept what we are experiencing, and we compare it to what we need. We analyze it. We compare it to what we need. And not only we're receptacles for everybody who wants to be our best selves, you know, and we give it back out by the way we live, by those issues that we champion, and our continued growth. We and even now, looking at our last 20 or 30 years, I think we're coming back into a realm of such activation, and nothing was lost. You know, nothing was lost, even though people came and gone and so forth and so on, died, or you know, nothing was lost because we're building on where we have to go.
Yes, sir.
Building on where we are, where we is, and where we have to go.
Right,
you know?
right.
And God is leading that charge. We just keep ourselves open, as Jaramogi Kimathi is doing, keeping ourselves open so that we can accept that charge and be the receptacles that need to contain the message so that when it's time to give it back, we give it back.
Amen. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right.
and we have to maintain that.
Amen.
And
Amen. Yeah. And if you, you know, if you're not actively engaged in the maintenance, then you won't have it. Because you have to always
That's
be
right.
seeking and always be open. So amen. I agree. All right. So
Yeah, and building together. There's stuff that you have to do on your own,
yes.
you know, because you have to be a sincere seeker.
Mhm.
You know,
Okay.
so you hear about it, you read about it. You don't just put it down and say, okay, those people, and I'll get to it next Sunday. No, you opening your mind and living it. You know,
Okay.
it's a way of life.
Amen. A BCN lifestyle. All right. So, and speaking of all that, I got to come back to the MOR thing, because I think MOR, you know, I didn't like it, but I did it because it's what I was supposed to be doing. 12 hours is a long time. So let's talk about that concept of missionary outreach. You already talked about Cardinal Nandi. I'm not sure if she was researching how to raise money, or she came across a group that was doing it. She's researching. Okay.
Researching.
Okay. So my question is how was that conversation received when it was introduced that, okay, we're going to be doing this thing called MOR? How was that received? And how was Jaramogi able to get people to actually do it? So tell us what MOR is, and then tell me about the history of it as far as how it was rolled out and how we actually got people to go do it.
Okay, MOR was taking cans out and raising money for the nation, and simply put, you know, donation to build a Black nation. And we went all over the world just to do it, all in Canada and all over the United States, you know, to do it. We call it missionary outreach, MOR,
yes,
you know. And yeah, that was developmental too. That was developmental too, just like everything else. But we have a tendency in the shrine to stay the course.
Yes, sir.
We start out and we analyze it and we improve it, and stuff we don't need we throw away. You know, and we develop people to handle different parts of it, and those who, you know, choose otherwise, they choose otherwise, and they're free to do what they want to do, to walk away, and whatever the case is. And so year after year after year, we developed a process where we send people out who were committed, and because of their commitment, that was part of our they had to have a certain level of commitment. Now, everybody didn't have to reach. You could be in groups where you didn't have to reach, but you had the all-stars, you know, who went out and reached, and those who felt committed to reach. We made it a norm. Of course, that was an institution that we had, and we had to finance the institution. So we made it a norm that this is how we are able to get the institutions that we need in terms of buildings, and in terms of even Beulah land, you know, so forth and so on. And that was part of our goal setting and our dream, and what we knew that we needed. And if we didn't have those kind of things, that we couldn't represent as we do today. And so because we were committed, because we were sincere seekers, and because we accepted the discipline that it took in order to do that, and that was more self-discipline than anything. Although in your group process, you were reminded of your self-discipline.
That's right.
You know, so, and we were able to, year after year after year after year after year, go out there in the cold, sometimes 15 below zero, you know, sometimes in the heat, sometimes under racist circumstances, and so forth. And some people died, you know, and so, but we gave our lives, we gave our commitment to the liberation of Black people, so that we would have the institutions that we have now. And even through those institutions, the ideas that are filtering out to the rest of the Black community, so they can do some of the same things that we have done, not necessarily MOR, but stand up and know who God is, and so forth and so on. They, you know, they have to be a part of the church.
Yeah.
They just have to know what was going on and do it. We were there, and we are there. And how did we get there? MR was a part of it.
Yeah, and for clarity, let me be clear to people who don't fully understand. MOR, missionary outreach, is standing in front of a store asking for donations. For those of us who were in advanced training, or as Cardinal said, the all stars, 12 hours you would be in front of the store asking for donations. And it's something. How long did it, from the time we started to the time we stopped? How many years was the church engaged in MOR?
Well, I know I've done it. Let's see, I guess we started in 70, I would say about 35 to 40 years.
Okay, yeah. So 35, 40 years, the shrine had enough Black people with a level of commitment that allowed them to travel the country every weekend, multiple days a week, raising money, because they all bought into the vision and the understanding of, we absolutely must have a nation of our own.
They knew it worked.
They knew it worked.
Yes, they did.
Okay, amen. Next question, do you think we, Cardinal Muthamaki, do you think we Black people will ever see that level of commitment again from our people? Because when I think about how difficult MOR was, not physically, just being out there, asking for donations. Some people might call it begging, whatever. Once I got out there, I was good to go. But getting started was very difficult for me because I didn't want to be out there, especially for 12 hours. Once I got started, I was okay. To have a Black person, a group of Black people that will go out. For me, it was on Freedom Train, so I left Friday evening, gone all day Saturday, come back early Sunday morning, get some sleep, go to church. But some people, as you say, the all-stars, they left on Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're all over the country. 12 hours, multiple days a week. So that's some serious commitment, Cardinal, that I'm not sure if we will ever see again. Not just that, but 7 days a week, we're doing something to contribute to the liberation and salvation of Black people. The BC and time ritual, every day we're doing something. So the question is, do you think we will ever see that level of commitment again from Black people like we had in the shrine?
Well, let me say this. There were folks who went out for weeks at a time.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Weeks at a time. That was our Holy Crusades.
Okay.
Weeks at a time.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think you could compare today to yesterday.
Okay.
Because there's possibly many other ways that we could raise the money. The question, it's not a question. I think with who we are and what we need to do, we need to shape a response to the technology, the
right
fundraising capacities of today in terms of institution building. So we don't have to go out with the cash.
Yes, sir. Amen.
and I'm saying that those who are committed will build industry.
Yes, sir.
Economics, and have a willingness to do it. I'm not going to shortchange my people.
Yes.
Because it's just a matter of the popular direction.
Okay.
Here is Africa right now asking for the brothers and sisters, us brothers and sisters of the diaspora, to support them, not in terms of giving them some old shoes or old clothes or whatever the case is, but to have businesses that both of us can share and there's a return on the investment.
Yes, sir.
So if we, instead of just thinking about begging for money, if we turn our sights toward that, building institutions in Africa and here where we trade off with business, I sell you this, you sell me that, or whatever the case is, and get a return on investment. I think that's the way we need to go. The MOR was a building block.
Yes, sir.
Not saying that we won't have to do it again, but it was a building block for that time and it worked. as the old man said, it worked.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
worked.
no doubt, no doubt. And we have the Butterland and the institutions as proof
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it worked. Okay, so three more questions and then we're good to go. Next question for someone who doesn't know, who's never heard the name, who was Reverend Albert B. Clegg?
Well, Reverend Albert B. Clegg was a middle class Black young man who grew up near where my dad grew up, around there about Beechwood, around in there. No, he grew up in other places too. He grew up in Indiana, I think in Indiana, and a couple other places before he came to Detroit. His family came to Detroit. His dad was a doctor, and his mother always taught him, to be proud of his Blackness.
Mhm.
And all of his family, they were professional oriented. But my mother told me when we were kids, we just moved on the west side from the Brewster Projects area, when we were being taught by white folks, because there was only a few of us in the neighborhood. She said, "Tell them you're a Negro and you're proud of it." Well, that was what went down back then. So he was proud. His family was proud. And what that family produced not only helped them as individuals, but they worked for the community.
Mhm.
They came out of the community. The father was a part of the building is still over there, off of Warren, the Black Doctors Association.
Mhm.
Jaramogi was a social worker, and he worked for the state as a social worker, helping people. And then he went on and got his theological degrees, and he pastored churches throughout the United States, including one in Massachusetts, one in California, and others. And he came to Detroit, I think, on a mission.
Hmm.
And his mission certainly was, he, like I say, he was kind of middle class, and he could have gone on just to be a middle class minister.
Sure.
And he was over there at it was a Grace Episcopal Church over there on Rosa Parks, 12th Street, what we called it back then.
Mhm.
By the way, that's interesting there, because that's where the rebellion started too. Later,
Okay.
later. But anyway, he left that church. He and a congregation of about 300 left that church because that church wanted to stay bougie and not do anything with the people in the neighborhood and in the community. So they walked out, and Jaramogi is on his mission established a place on Chicago where they met, and in fact I remember going there reporting a activity they had there. Also, then I think they were on a Dexter for a minute, and then they bought Brewster Congregational Church, which is the shrine of the Black Madonna now. And then he started his ministry in that church and opened it up for enlightened activity, and he grew from there. Now Jaramogi, the March on Washington, not the March on Washington, but the march that was in Detroit.
Okay.
Preceding the March on Washington, they brought Martin Luther King there.
Mhm.
Jaramogi, Del Rio, and Reverend Franklin organized that.
Okay.
Okay. And he didn't get the credit for it, but he wasn't looking for credit. He was looking for change.
Right.
And so there's been this relationship between those pastors back then, where this is my congregation, these are the people that I work with. I mean, you might be different, like Reverend Franklin wasn't going to be like the Shrine of Black Madonna, you know, and we, you know, had to travel our own road too. So Jaramogi, throughout and this is during the 50s, I mean 60s, throughout the 60s, had newspaper, illustrated news. He was constantly knocking at the door of Black folks and white folks' consciences. This ain't right. This has got to change. This is wrong. He had the illustrated news. I remember the little blue paper, sometimes the blue, or sometimes it'd be other, because his brother ran the printing press.
Okay.
His other brother was a doctor, just like his father was. His other brother was an attorney.
Okay.
The attorney. So they used that family industry and unity and power to stand up for our people.
Right.
And Jaramogi led the charge, as well as Cardinal Nandi, and Gladys, you know, with the cultural center.
Yes, sir.
So Jaramogi, I say, has been on a mission all his life that I know of, you know, and it's all been consistent.
And that mission
of Black people.
There you go. All right. Amen. All right. So next question. Since you knew Jaramogi for so long, what's one thing
your sound is going off.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but it was just dragging out.
Oh,
it says my internet connection is unstable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's okay. We only got 2 questions left, so
okay.
Get through it. All right. So since you knew Jaramogi for so long, what's one thing about Jaramogi that past or current members might be shocked to know or learn? What's one thing that you can share with us that we might be shocked to learn about Jaramogi? Like, you know, he really liked bubble gum.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. You know, you have to be somebody who's closer to those kind of things.
Okay.
I told you he sent me to hypnosis school because he was a seeker. He wanted to see how that would work.
Right.
I told you that. I don't know.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't think of nothing.
Okay.
I'm not gonna make up nothing.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, all right. You'll think of something after the call, so you'll be like, man.
Yeah.
All right. So final question before we close it out, Cardinal. What are the top 3 things? I know it's a lot, but what are the top 3 things that you can think of that you believe Cardinal Muthamaki Kimati, you believe the shrine excelled that Black people could still benefit from today? What are the top 3 things that you think the shrine excelled at that Black people could still benefit from today?
The shrine is what now?
That the shrine excelled at, that we did really well.
Okay. Oh, maintaining our knowledge and broadcasting it, that we need to build institutions for ourselves.
Okay.
And that we have an enemy. See, what they call now, they didn't call it institutional racism. What do they call it? Systemic racism.
Okay.
Systemic racism. Jaramogi's been saying that. He coined it almost.
Yes, sir.
He's been saying. So we've been keeping that word out there, making a difference, so that when people ran out of all other ways of seeing it and know they're still desperate for knowing the truth, they found that truth that was out there that we helped put out there. They may not have come to the shrine, but the truth is out there, and that energy, we couldn't die. We didn't die. We haven't died. You know, we kept putting that energy out there. The other is that we've got to change. We've got to change from the inside out in order to expect the outside to change to help us. And whatever we have to do that as seekers, we've got to find that. And that's what cool is about. And that's what we've got to do. And change from what? Change from being slave culture where we destroy each other, where we destroy ourselves, and open ourselves to God's love and energy that is instructing us how to change and how to come off of what we have been doing that doesn't work, has never worked.
Right.
And that's, again, Kua. That's again, the BCN teachers. Whole
Amen.
class.
All right.
And that's what Jeramogi was teaching us.
Yeah, amen, amen. And I said top 3. God knows if you give me enough time, as a matter of fact, I did this one time. I was on Facebook and I made a post of all the things that I think the Shrine got right, and I stopped at 50 because there were so many. Yeah, I stopped at 50. So okay, all right, Cardinal. That concludes the first episode of How to Build a Black Nation with Power. I sincerely appreciate you taking time out to have this conversation with me. Do you have any closing remarks you'd like to say about anything that we covered, or maybe something I didn't cover before we close it out?
Well, just that this is a nice conversation. We covered a lot, more to cover, of course, but the bottom line is that we don't have the institutions that we need.
Yes, sir.
But we're in a process of acquiring them. Don't let anybody tell you that we're not going back to anything. We're continuing, and I'm talking about you who are not members of the Shrine, you in your own lifestyle, because God is in charge here and God is letting you know what's going on here, and God is helping you to take the cover off of your fears, your doubts, and your confusion. That there is a way to go. Some of those ways to go have been suggested by the Shrine. Look at them. Look at them. Look at all the other things. Be a seeker yourself. But the goal is that we become a people with institutional power that makes us not only powerful here in the United States, but Pan-Africans throughout the world, so that we can come back to our original role to help the rest of humanity.
Amen, amen. And on that note, I like to end all of my live events with 2 statements. One is no one can do everything, but if everyone does something, everything will get done. And absolutely, always remember that nothing is more sacred. Not me, not you, not your kids, not my kids, not your family, not my family. Nothing is more sacred than the liberation, the empowerment, the freedom, and the salvation of Black people. Because if Black people don't make it, you're not gonna make it, I'm not gonna make it, our kids won't make it, and our families won't make it. But if we put the nation first, and we put the tribe first, and we build for the nation with power first, then everything that we love, everything we hold dear, everything that we care about will be taken care of, because the nation has power. So on that note, Cardinal Muthamaki, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will reach out again to do part 2 when I have the Maccabees on. It'll be a group conversation, so you will see me again. And I do appreciate it. Have a good evening. God bless. And I thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Good. You too.